Hi, and welcome to Tremco Live, where we're socially distant but technically connected. I am Marcy Tyler, the Director of Building Science for Tremco, and I am one of your hosts.
And I'm Paul Hugenboom. I'm your other host. I'm the president of Tremco Construction Products with Marcy, a tremendous collection of companies, brands, products, systems, and of course, most of all, people.
People, that's our tagline each time. We are always very, very excited to be able to be up in front of each and every one of you every Friday, being able to talk about design challenges, talk about project-specific solutions, and it's funny, Paul, because I think each week I say it's one of your favorites.
and they are indeed all my favorites.
Yes, exactly.
Some are extra special.
Extra special. So we are also on the road with Tremco, so we're gonna take a dive into an area here in a few minutes. But let's take a look at the technology that we are going to specifically be talking about today. So as always, we're sharing that power of one, which goes back to represent all those different brands and those systems all over your structure, and the people behind it all that we're so very happy to be a part of. But this week specifically, we're going to take a dive into gaskets and glazing. So specifically how we look at restoration. And here are just, once again, Paul, a few of your favorite photos representing some of those restoration solutions.
Yeah, some of my absolute favorite projects, right? If I had a wall of fame.
Yeah, exactly.
Several of these would be must-haves.
Yes, absolutely. And you know what's interesting, you can see some iconic pictures here, obviously with the Puerto Rico Convention Center, some of these different types of skylights that you may not recognize, but they're parts of museums. Yeah. So, with any type of fenestration or glazing area, obviously we don't want to let air and water in, and that's what we're focusing on, is how do we get that restorative life, useful life back to these types of building components.
Yeah, these are, of course, very high value assets that need to perform. Your museum examples are classic, where we did that work while the space is fully occupied underneath with very, very valuable
things. Exactly, right. And that's what's so important, right, is these elements of your structure that may not be performing as well as they should be from an air and water leakage perspective. We've got lots of different solutions that can come and make that fix. So what we're excited about, as always, is coming to you with that full tool bag. So what we're always being able to look at when we sit down with you on these projects is try to figure out what's going to be the best solution for your project. So here is just a couple of those options when we're looking at the restorative ways that we can get that building and that glazed area being back to being air and water tight. We got sealants, right? Of course, that's our bread and butter, right? Sealants are always an option, but they may not be the best option, right? Sealants are very easy to install. I guess I should say they're not always easy to install, because if you look at any of the caulking I've done, it doesn't look very good. So, but I guess when you think of it, there's not a specialized equipment that's associated with something like that. There's lots of flexibility and color and whatnot. If you go to the next two of them there, we have pre-cured solutions. And I know that's something we're really excited about, and it's not new to us. So when people that I'm very close to in the industry didn't know that we had that, I'm upset that they didn't know that. They might think of us as that sealant and that waterproofing company, but we do have these great gasket restoration solutions.
Yeah, I think
glazing restoration solutions.
I think the default I always call them wet dry systems. I think the default's always wet. You think it's intuitive to go sealant, and I think maybe the tendency is to think that something pre-cured or a gasket system, it's too hard, it's too this, it's too that.
Yeah.
And of course, to your point, it's great to be able to educate and say, no, this is, one, a lot of standard things that we do. And two, the ability to go custom is actually pretty quick.
Exactly. And custom and hybrid, right? So maybe one solution isn't going to be able to make your application getting back to being air and water tight. So we've got this portfolio to be able to work with you. So sealants, those pre-cured solutions that of course utilize sealant to hold them in place. And then last but not least, we've got that full gasket replacement if that ends up being necessary on your system. A word that you might see up there under solution type is encapsulation.
Yeah, that is I don't think that's a standard term in our industry, but it is for us.
It is for us, yes. And that ability, when we talk about encapsulation, and you might notice there, we're not telling you have to remove that existing sealant if we're going over and encapsulating that issue. So we're going to go up and over mullions. We're going to go from metal to glass. So whatever your condition is, we're going to have a variety of different options that fit within that pre-cured area, the pre-cured silicone and restoration overlay solution, so that we can really match what your issue was and get it back to being air and watertight. Now, what we don't have up here was a residential building that we love to talk about, just because the key thing here is when we're encapsulating something and we're not removing sealant, we're not removing windows, which means we're not removing you, the occupant.
And the other thing too is sometimes for aesthetic reasons, removing things can mar a surface, right? So there's a lot of aesthetic reasons why encapsulation gives you a really nice, clean look. And the other thing is a lot of times what's encapsulated could be considered hazardous material if you removed it, right? So the ability to just setting up on a job site for hazardous materials can be as expensive as the whole job itself. So the ability to just circumvent that with encapsulation is very powerful.
And you know, when we talk about these applications and why we showed some on that previous slide is you could have a small atrium area, a small skylight area, or you could have a 20, 40-story building. These solutions are going to be able to work for you. And you know, as always, we like to be able to bring in those feet on the street and those voices that have that firsthand experience. And so at this point, we would like to address the fact that we are on the road this week in Baltimore, Maryland, and our guests are going to join us now. Hi, welcome to Tremco Live, guys.
Thank you for having us.
Very excited to have you guys be a part of our program today. Trevor, welcome. I know you're not new to Tremco by any means. You're certainly very familiar with where Paul and I are sitting today in Cleveland, Ohio. And then of course, Brian, one of our great feet on the street. So why don't we kick it off? Trevor, tell us a little bit about yourself, your industry experience.
My father's had a commercial glazing outfit before I was born. So for better or worse, I was bred to be in this industry, and I really like partnering with great manufacturers to put me into a niche market and being able to partner with someone that has got exceptional products, because then it makes me look good for my customers when they have a difficult problem or they have a building that's leaking that's going to cost a significant amount of time to replace, and it's going to disrupt their operations within the building. That if we have got niche materials that we can provide them, it's really a win-win for all parties concerned.
Perfect, that's great. I know your history with us isn't recent. I guess we can do a little shout out to Jim Holler, who is a retired sales rep of ours that you worked with as well.
Absolutely.
So I'll text him later that you say hello.
Yeah.
But now you're well supported by Brian Porter. Brian, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hi, folks. I'm Brian Porter. I'm a technical sales representative here, anchoring Baltimore, Maryland, DC, and Virginia territories. Been with Tremco for about 4 years now. I had the more traditional entry into the waterproofing business as my dad is a contractor here in Baltimore. He's the vice president of consolidated coatings. So you could say that he and I essentially grew up in the business together. At the ripe age of 14, instead of going out and getting in trouble on Sunday afternoons, my dad was taking me out to parking decks, learning how to cut out expansion joints, do nosing, traffic coatings, and all that. So, like most dads, he wants the best for his kids. So he did everything he could to keep me out of waterproofing. But here I sit, 23 years later, working for a fantastic organization.
Here, here.
That's awesome. So yeah, you both are based in Baltimore, but obviously projects within that area are some of the stuff we're going to talk about today. Thanks so much for sharing with us your experience. I know Trevor's helped us out in a variety of different ways. Obviously a skilled installer. We're going to talk about some of his projects, but he also helped us out at one of the shows we were at and producing, I believe, content as well as our mock-up. So that mock-up there has got the restoration overlay on it.
That's correct. Yep, I built that mock-up to represent slope glazing, which could be a single punched skylight or also a solarium setup with a vertical curtain wall and then the slope glazing on top of it. So that mock-up specifically, represents 3 different systems that you could have on a building. And then if you notice the top corner, I left the SRO off of it and showed how the pressure bar system works with the rubber gaskets, how it works with the metal panel and the glass, and all of the missteps that can be done if the installation is not done correctly, and also where the joints will wear out and the failure points are within a curtain wall and skylight system.
That's a great visual mock-up for sure. And I know, Brian, that's you in the picture there with Josh Hauk at the show. How was that perceived there? That was probably a great ability to tell the story, having that mock-up.
Absolutely. As you spend enough time at trade shows, you get a lot of people that are the passerbys, floating around, grabbing the trinkets, the pens and all of that. But I think what differentiated ourselves at the NFMT show in Baltimore is the fact we had an actual mock-up. So having the ability for people to walk by and be like, whoa, what is that? It really encouraged a lot of good engagement. Having conversations with folks. We talked to everybody from property managers to building owners, third-party consultants, architects, and just other manufacturing reps too. They'd pop over and be like, wow, that's pretty cool.
We did that mock-up, which we thought would be more effective than saying, hey guys, this is our profile, this is what it looks like, and imagine what this looks like on your wall. This profile itself is the same profile that is on that mock-up that we used. I believe later in our slideshows, you'll see a BWI airport where we installed this profile to the tune of 42,000 linear feet on top of all of the skylights on the international pier. So this is a true and tried system profile right here.
Well, and it's interesting because this isn't new to us, right? This is technology that we've had around for many, many years. And I think we're just kind of going through somewhat of a revival, and Trevor's been a key part of it, obviously, helping us out at the show, helping us out with this mock-up and these great case studies that we're going to walk through as well.
Yeah, I hear all the time what we're saying right now about mock-ups. I hear all the time about the power of a mock-up. Or the other thing is constructing the mock-up during the presentation.
Right.
Doing either of those seems to be really powerful.
Yeah, absolutely. So what we have here is a video. There isn't any sound, so we can talk through it all together here. But I think what's great is it's going to show a variety of the projects that we're going to talk about later. But it's nice to give it an inside view of the actual installation too, in action. So I'm going to let Trevor kind of narrate for us here.
So this is the BWI airport. This is the international pier. This is a video that I took of it raining up there, showing how the water will cascade over the overlay and it's not having any ponding issues, which obviously if you have water on a sky like that, it's ponding, it's going to wear out your caulking joints, your structural joints significantly faster. So when you're installing a product, you want to make sure that the joint is recessed down or that it has a keel bead on it to allow the water to roll down and roll over the product and not be dammed up on a windowsill or a horizontal, because eventually the environmental impacts of that will work its way through the system. So from these pictures here, you can kind of get a scale as to how large of an undertaking this was on this project that we did. With this being on the international pier, we had a lot of logistical issues being on top of U.S. Customs and Border Patrol. We had a lot of MDAP police that we had to deal with on top of the FAA security, with us having a vantage point and particularly being up there on top of that pyramid. So we completed this project ahead of schedule with no injuries, which is always key. And the airport is extremely happy with the end result. Prior to us putting the SRO profile on those skylights, they were losing tenants that were below them that were checking people into the airports and doing their procedures. because the employees refused to work there because every time it rained, the rain was dripping on them. So the airport was losing revenue because of the leaks. And then obviously the water and mold damage from that was persistent. Every time it rained, the maintenance people would go out and they had tape on the floors where they would put trash cans. And that's how detailed and how many leaks that they had. So it was really, really a major problem for them that we were able to solve without completely replacing the skylight, because it was as you can see, a very, very substantial project.
Yes, it's interesting. Obviously, the video has ended, but we have lots of pictures here to talk further about it. How, you know, a lot of times we show the finish, you know, work, and then people are like, well, how did you do it? So I think that was the best part of that video, to show, you know, how you really have to know what you're doing when you're up there as well. And then obviously the complication of being an airport adds to it, right?
Sure. And along with this project, because I have grown up in the glazing industry, as I told you, my entire life, I replaced 55 broken insulated units prior to installing the overlay on it. So that is one benefit that Quality Walls and Windows brings to the table with skylights or vertical glazing or windows, that if the glass is cracked or broken or fogged, we can replace that prior to installing the SRO or the overlay. And you got a completely warranted system. And as long as your framing is not deteriorated or rusted, which it shouldn't be, because most architectural skylights are aluminum framing, there's no need to completely demo, replace all of the framing just to fill up the landfills. We're able to restore it and give you a great warranted product on it.
That's great. And that, I think that's the key part of it, right? Of being versatile with based on your experience, you know, you're going to be able to replace what needs to be replaced, but then also be able to work on what needs to be worked on as well.
So this picture here, particularly that's on the left, where the baggage claim is, on that last screen, that is the level where no tenants would be there working to allow baggage to come in there. So that was Alaskan Airways and Air Canada, and they refused, and they were going to pull out of the airport because they were putting their employees in hazardous situations with the water running down there.
That's a significant piece of real estate there to not be able to utilize. That's incredible.
Yeah.
Yes.
The benefit of really addressing it with an overlay system is,
right,
as opposed to the alternatives.
Right, and you know that alternative, right? Because you've had to replace, so you know how efficient it can be if we can do something while keeping that useful life.
Oh, sure. Because the airport's other option was to completely demo and replace all that, and that would have shut down that terminal for, you know, a year to replace all of that space framing with the architectural glass and the aluminum framing there. So it was a major cost savings, and we didn't interrupt the occupants of that space whatsoever while we were doing our work.
I know you mentioned it earlier when we were showing the video, how important the detailing is, right? So you're putting this restoration overlay down, and you want to make sure in doing so you're not going to cause ponding water. So I think that was a great explanation of how you were able to demonstrate that and achieve that as well.
Sure is. The details are the devil's in the details, they say, but if you know what you're doing and you have a good manufacturer that backs you up, the teamwork makes the dream work.
Right. Like to hear that. Here's a few more pictures. Once again, just kind of capturing some of the necessary steps you need to take to be able to install it.
Yep. So that scaffolding there, in particular, that manufacturer has never gone horizontally up a curtain wall system. That power mast system was made to go vertically up a wall. So when I was awarded this project, I said, how am I going to access all of these areas safely? And I got with the owner that made this scaffolding, and I said, hey, can we put this on a 45-degree angle and climb up some pyramids? And after a lot of brain scratching, we came up with this design, and it worked out great.
Wow, that's great. Right? I mean, I think that's what we're missing, that part of it, right? Not knowing It's like we see the before and we see the after, but you guys are obviously that amazing
You
part.
showed us the magic.
You did, sharing with us that magic, Trevor. That's awesome.
Pulling back the curtain a little bit. Not too far though, but just a little bit.
No, can't do that. I know the video also included some of this library as well.
Yes. So this is Enoch Pratt in Baltimore, Maryland. This is a very, very high profile job because it is a historic building. The original scope on this, because this skylight is historic with the steel framing and the details that you see here, that the original scope was to demo this and replace it. But there was a big bugaboo with the Historic Society and the GC about demoing the historic skylight with the stained glass lay light below it. So I came on the scene and I said, hey, I understand why it's leaking and I see your broken glass there. I can replace your broken glass in kind and I can encapsulate your historic skylight system to keep it intact and prevent it from leaking and warranty it for, as we said, 20 years on the material. And then I backed it up with 10 years on the labor. And they said, well, if you can do it and the manufacturer will back you up, let's see what you can do. So from there, we then designed these 3D printed profiles of my design with Tremco. And it took us 3 renderings before I was happy with it. And we got our blessings on it. And it turned out absolutely awesome. I believe you have pictures here of the finished product. And it looks just like a brand new skylight.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
The picture on the bottom right was the skylight before we started, and the picture on the left was that completed.
It looks so clean, you know, it looks so, like the aesthetics, that's what I think is missed a lot, is obviously air and water tight is a big issue, right? Especially on something like a library, but then getting that just cleaned up and looking so much nicer.
Yeah, I like Marcy. I think we collect these historical ones where you bring something back as new that, I don't know, can be 100 years older.
Yeah.
Older.
Yeah. This will definitely be one. We'll be mentioning Trevor and quality walls and windows for sure.
Sure, and there's no need to fill up the landfills with systems that we can design and install and preserve the life and the history of these skylights and these buildings, and again, save the environment while we're doing it.
And then I know we wanted to talk about a recent one too that you guys are working on as well. So this is a picture of that recent one that you're working on, part of the Smithsonian National Air and Space Museum.
Yes, this is a very cool project. So this particular project had all of the cow wall clear story windows here are leaking significantly because the original installers didn't do the back end damming correctly, and there was no sill pan flashing. And then you can see how they have the panels above the cow wall systems removed. All of that was not flashed correctly during the original install. So with your system, with us being able to encapsulate systems that are originally designed to take on water and weep them out, if those conditions aren't done correctly, or if one trade drops the ball, or if someone details it incorrectly, we can encapsulate it to block off the systems from taking on the water. And then we've solved the issues without having to remove and interrupt the internal operations of the building. So this original scope was us taking out all of the cow wall, replacing all of the cow wall, having plywood in there and dealing with extremely long lead times. And then there was budget issues with the project because they didn't realize that all of these panels had structural damage to them and that all of these panels would literally fall apart once we removed them to store them. So I had said, I have a product that we can test on these panels to see if we can save them and get you guys another couple years of service life out of these panels without taking on water and then the mold that's in the building. And again, they have vendors underneath of this clear story that were complaining of the mold and the dripping and the stains, and that they weren't going to be paying their rent within the building here, because again, there's concessions underneath of them. So the owners had expressed to me that they've got a larger budget coming along, that in the next 5 to 7 years they're going to be completely replacing the facade of the building, and that they would love an option to limp them along until the funding is approved and all the drawings are done. So Brian and I offered them this product that's never been installed on this cow wall sandwich fiberglass panel before. So we had to do a lot of R&D on it, where we took some field samples and applied it in the field. We did pull tests on it. We felt confident that it would pass in the lab. We then took sheets from the project and sent it up to your lab up there in Cleveland. You guys did the UV light testing on it for the aging, along with proper adhesion testing in a controlled lab. You guys had passed it. Prior to that, the design team was shooting us down because they were saying that this is not going to solve the issues of the improper drainage and improper install from the other trades that did this building, 15, 20, 30 years ago. And Brian and I were able to say, no, this is going to solve your issue, because we are going to take away the water weepage from the system and completely seal it off. So all the water is staying on the outside of the facade. So it took a little convincing and a lot of testing. And after the test reports came back and we did the mock-ups, they said, okay, we'll give you a try, but you're going to have to do 3 Alma spray hose water tests, and we're also going to do a chamber test. Assuming that all of those pass, you're good to go in the project. So we were able to achieve it, and the end result is that the customer saved or prolonged having to replace about $3.5 million worth of cow wall product on this building, that they're now able to budget for 5 to 7 years down the road when they can get their funds together and complete their plans. So they are absolutely ecstatic at how this turned out, because if not, the lead time on these current panels, it would have extended this project 2 years and then added $3.5 million that they weren't willing and able to absorb, either on the timeline or financially.
Oh my goodness. I know, Brian, you had mentioned this to me. I didn't realize all the back work you both did together collectively. How was that experience?
It was interesting. Being in my position, right? As a technical sales rep, it's our job and also duty is to, support our customers. Trevor and I had multiple meetings on site, and from consultants to architects, they literally looked at him and I as if we were crazy. But once we really started speaking intelligently about, first our partnership, our relationship, I would tell Trevor, hey, look, you got a manufacturer behind you. And once we started offering all the testing,
right,
adhesion testing, willing to send the panels out to the lab to do accelerated testing, that changed the conversation considerably. So we were really fortunate to have an audience that was willing to go through the process with us. And once we were able to clear that hurdle, no project's ever smooth sailing, but it really kicked things into high gear. I was grateful to be part of it with Trevor.
I love hearing that, because we talk a lot about that collaboration that needs to occur, right? So that both of your experiences coming together and being able to support it. Trevor, every time Paul and I get up here and we do these broadcasts, we talk about the feet on the street, and that's being committed to having someone like Brian there with you to work with you is a key part.
Well, the other thing we've seen on each of these projects today, Marcy, is the innovation that Trevor's bringing.
Yes.
I mean, we do our part on the product side, but the innovation that Trevor's bringing on the application side is just remarkable.
Yeah.
Well, it's also the people that don't know some of these products that are out there and what can be done with them. I have an advantage because I have a little bit of tenacity and go after it. And I like these niche markets, especially because, the competition's smaller. And at the end of the day, I like to look back at our work and be proud of what we did. And then to have Tremco and a manufacturer that's saying, yeah, I can do that with you. I can support you on that. This is what you can do. This is what you can't do. And maybe we can do this. We just have to test it. It's really just a beautiful relationship, because I can look at these projects and understand what the end user wants, what they need to get, because there's a lot of convolution that can happen on these large government jobs between the end user, the SI team, the design team, the engineers, what they spec out, because they don't know about some of these new products, and then they don't know what the specialty contractors can do. And this is certainly a specialty project, specialty product with you guys, and I'm a specialty contractor with a glazing expertise. So, you know, this one and future projects, it really lines up well. We just have to open up some people's eyes to what we can do and how we can solve their problems.
Well, it certainly says a lot, you know, because of your creativity and your ability to gain their trust. Just like you said, they're not familiar with these solutions, and that this could have even been an option for them. So I'm sure you are quite the hero for them at this point, you know, being able to give them the ability to keep that useful life going until they're ready and prepared to do what they need to do moving forward. Brian and Trevor, it's been awesome having you guys on. This is really great. I know Paul always likes to, you're a thinker, so Paul's going to keep you in the back of his mind, Trevor, about innovative ideas for sure. But is there something that you guys would like to share with us to kind of wrap up today?
Let's keep it going. If you guys have any other projects or any other people that you know that are in a pinch within the glazing world, I can certainly help them. I'm a certified dealer for YKK, US Aluminum, Tube Light, Colnier, Cowwall. So in the glazing world, I can get all the replacement parts. I know how the systems are supposed to work, and then I can talk about other options if people are, in a rock and a hard place.
I think that's just it. Having those options and then that knowledge base and experience is really a key part of being able to provide that solution and gain everybody's trust. Brian, nice to have you on today. Thanks for bringing this to our attention and sharing that with us.
My absolute pleasure. And I forgot to mention in the intro that I actually have a partner in the territory. His name is also Brian, Mr. Brian Radigan. So if you're in Baltimore, yeah, we're Team Brian, the Killer Bees. So if you're in Baltimore, you're in DC, if you're in Virginia, please know that you have two fantastic resources here to support you.
Absolutely. Those feet on our street makes us proud. Makes us proud. Well, thanks, guys. Thank you so much for being able to be on with us today. We really appreciate it. And I know everyone watching is probably pretty excited to be able to see this awesome solution.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks.
Great. Have a good day. Thank you. Looking forward to more projects together.
Absolutely.
These were great projects, Marcy.
Yes, they were. Pretty exciting to see the innovation.
Yeah, I was going to say Trevor's innovation.
Yeah.
You know, just our products alone wouldn't have got you there. You had to innovate on the job site. Like the testing on the last one to really gain the trust of the customer.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, there's the 3D printing, you know, the iterations that we're going to try, and then the testing, and then having that confidence, knowing it's going to be validated out there as well, knowing it's going to be spray tested. Having that testing done gives you that confidence.
Another great historical study for us to put in our archive.
Yeah, it's a good historical one. So it's great. So we're going to continue to be on the road in August. I know Paul will be on the road as well. So we're going to come to you live, focusing on a variety of different cities throughout North America. So definitely check back in with us. And thank you, as always, for joining us on Tremco Live.
Take care, everybody. Be safe.